No! For the 12th day of the Spooktober Fest 2020, this is an exciting one. We're talking about the Poughkeepsie Tapes, came out in technically 2007, directed by John Eric Dowdle, who made the Rec remake Quarantine in 2008. He then wrote the second one. He also made As Above, So Below, another found footage horror I saw when it first came out, which, from my memory by the way, wasn't really that bad, at least from my memory. And here we have the Poughkeepsie Tapes, a film that has been named the most disturbing or the best found footage film you have never seen. It initially premiered in 2007 in Tribeca and was heading for a theatrical release by MGM, but it was removed from the scheduling apparently because of some budgeting issues. So it had a very brief video on demand release in 2014. Then it was taken down after a month of that. After that, 10 years later in 2017, it was finally released officially through DVDs and Blu-rays. So it had a very rough releasing history, but after seeing this film, it just adds more fuel to the fire, and I think it actually makes the experience even better. When a group of police and special forces raided a serial killer's house in Poughkeepsie, New York, they found hundreds upon hundreds of VHS tape in which they documented the brutal torturing, killing, and raping of his countless victims. Now, if you saw the video I did on I Spit on Your Grave, then you might recall me saying this. I don't do research on movies that I watch. It's more like picking movie titles out of a hat, and if the title seems about right, I will watch it. Well, this isn't any different. I walked into the Poughkeepsie Tapes, and as soon as it started, I said, oh, it's a true crime documentary. Alright, I'll probably won't review it, but I'm here already, so let's just finish the film anyway. With that mindset, I finished the entire film barely keeping myself together. I was horrified throughout. I felt exhausted as soon as the credits started rolling. Because I thought this was a real documentary, there are scenes in there that when I was watching, I was barely holding myself together. My heart was beating fast, and I just felt so dirty. Now, I know I may be making a fool of myself by admitting that, but that is the experience I had watching this. And I'm so glad that this one got to me, because I've never had a film experience like this before. It was completely unique, so before you type your clown emojis in the comments, let me explain. The series of events supposedly took place in the late 80s to the early 2000s, and the filmmakers really did a phenomenal job at creating the story world. The filmmakers crafted so many elements that can make this movie feel as real as possible. This goes from the newsreel footage, costume design, what some of these FBI agents are wearing and how they look, the cut and dried animations and graphics they inserted here and there, to the barely watchable found footage of these VHS tapes. Everything looks so filthy. Considering this film never got a theatrical release, watching this thing late at night at your home with a TV really feels like the best condition. Moreover, the filmmakers were also clever enough to throw 9/11 into the mix at some point during the story for these interviews they do with people, which in my opinion is a really ingenious move of grounding the film to reality where the mass audience can instantly connect with. The editing is incredibly aggressive. You're in the middle of the scene of people talking, we cut straight to the middle of another scene with this loud static noise that pierces your ears. They're never done in a way of jump scaring the audience. As a matter of fact, there is no jump scare in the entire movie. I actually think they did it to hide many of the disturbing images you might have seen if they didn't cut it right then and there. It offsets your expectations and mood, but builds tension throughout the entire movie. The slanted angles of some of these interviews kind of pulls me away from this being a normal run-of-the-mill documentary, but the very choice of doing that also made me feel that these are the choices the filmmakers were intentionally making for this intensive subject material, which to me, it's a net positive for realism. Now, with all those being said, I know a lot of people are gonna straight up deny everything that happened in this movie, and I'm not saying there weren't any red flags for me either, but many of them are so tiny they just flew over my head as soon as they left my mind. For once, I was wondering the whole time how they got the permission to show some of these footage. That's definitely one of my biggest concerns, but I think the film did such a fantastic job at making everything seem so real, and also making the conscious decision of not showing some of the most gruesome parts of these tapes that it rides the line constantly. There are some tapes they showed quite a lot, but at some point during the movie, even though there are shots where I thought to myself, wow, this serial killer would have some artistic talent if he were a filmmaker, the idea that it could be fake was completely out of the window. I wasn't even thinking at that point because the film doesn't really allow me to through its incredible setup. But for the sake of the argument, there are some interviewees, their performances are a bit dramatized. You can kind of tell they're trying to sell the performance you would see in some other low budget thriller films. Little moments like this definitely stuck out to me the most.
It's part of the reason that we never grouped his killings together. It's probably why he did it.
And to my defense, I just wrote them off as normal human behavior. When you're put in front of the camera, you act a bit unnatural. Not to mention some of these excellent performances from some of the cast members here. There's a fantastic house intrusion scene and a police car scene that includes a very long take. They truly terrify me. Some people also said how the serial killer talks just like a normal guy and does not sound intimidating at all. To that I say, yeah. That's the fucking point. That's why it's scary. The idea that he can be anyone and you wouldn't even know about it. Even though you can argue so much of the dialogue from this film, especially from the storyline of the victim, her friends, and her parents, are very on the nose now that I see it in retrospect. I really don't mind them that much because I would like to believe that the filmmakers captured an idea so well. Whether they did it consciously or not, I have no idea. But I would like to believe, I want to believe that they captured the idea of reality is always stranger than fiction so well, which is what makes the Poughkeepsie Tapes feel real. And it's easy to say, oh, you loved it just because you thought it was real. True, but it's also equally as easy to say, yeah, but the film didn't rip me out of it. At least it kept me believing it for the entire runtime. Because by creating a stranger than fiction reality, somehow you made your fictitious reality a reality. I finally truly experienced what the audience members felt when watching the Blair Witch Project back in '99. I'm gonna give the Poughkeepsie Tapes an A+. And I cannot wait to see how this movie will age down the road for me personally. The score is a very temporary settlement. I wonder how I would think of everything a few years from now. So if you haven't seen this, I would recommend you checking this out.